Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Appreciate everybody that's jumping on in. The notifications are going out. I'm excited about that. And welcome to my guests here tonight. We have BC PortCorp. Welcome, sir. Appreciate you being here. First time on my channel, so thank you very much.
Oh, second time. We did the
Is this
inauguration.
second? Oh, that's right.
Yep.
Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's right. Second. what the hell do I know? It's only my channel. But I appreciate you being here. This is going to be a good discussion tonight. I think you've got good opinions in this regard, so I think it's going to be good. So thank you. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be back. I'm glad you invited me.
Yeah, excellent. And we have Brian from Tiny Crypto Blog. Now, Brian's been here before for sure, although it's been a little bit, Brian, I think about a year now, right?
Yeah, I know we did that New Year's Day show last year. There was some crypto on the rocks I was able to pop in on. But yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Well, I'm glad you're here. I always appreciate your input with this, and well, you know, we've had that discussion offline, so always appreciate your opinion and you being here. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's see if we've got some initial people jumping on into the chat. And Bedell's in the chat. Welcome, Bedell. Appreciate you. And he's asking, is this something new? Well, this is a special topic that I think needs to be discussed, so that's why we're kind of jumping in here on a Thursday night. Automatic Beats is in the house as always. This guy is everywhere. I'll tell you what. Appreciate your support, man. Appreciate your support. Yes. Good evening. Good evening. Let's see here. Melissa, excellent. So glad you could make it tonight. Appreciate you. Got that way I got a wrench in the chat between you and Bedell there. I'm good. Not that I think I'm gonna need it. I think we're gonna be okay. I think we're gonna be okay. So yes, exactly. Let's get this thing underway. All right. So tonight we're gonna be talking about well, okay, let's back that up. President Trump put out an executive order that had to deal with crypto and the ability to have different digital assets doing a bunch of different stuff, and I got a whole working group to see what we can do to make this a positive place for crypto here in the United States. Since then, because part of that was to put together, as he put it, a national crypto stockpile. And that created a buzz on X, and not in a good way. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we had this discussion tonight. So to set the table, I'm going to actually play a quick video that I put together. It's a little over 2 minutes long. It is going to be, excuse me, a discussion that Trade Intuition and I had on Monday about this particular topic on our Crypto Market Monday. So let me bring that up. We'll play it real quick, and then we're going to get these guys to jump on in here and give us their opinion on this. The creation of a strategic national digital asset stockpile. During the campaign, it was all...
Need the volume up a little bit.
And here, Bitcoin is not mentioned specifically. I mean, it would make sense to me that would be part of the stockpile, but the way it's worded is got people, or Bitcoin maxis, mostly up in arms about, like, hey, wait a minute, you know, we don't want these other, I won't use their colorful language, coins, and you know, we've seen a lot of toxicity in the space about that. Me personally, I have no issue with having altcoins as long as they're
I think you just lost
the volume.
I'm sorry, meme coins to me don't have a place with that. Even Doge, and Doge is like the OG of meme coins, right? But yeah, no, not so much. I mean, give some good L1s that have utility. Even when we were talking about that on Friday, 100 Air mentioned possibly RWA, that kind of thing. And hey, okay, I'm open to that. I'm open to it. And again, with the caveat to all of that being that Bitcoin still needs to be part of it. I know it's not. I mean, it's still got to be part of it. It does. 100%. And I'll go as far as to say it should be the lion's share of it. I'm going to actually hold on one second. Maybe 50% of that, and then break the other 50%. Shut up! Shut up! I'm pulling that out because I've got Bedell saying he can't hear anything from that, even though I had all sound. So, in case that was not, there was no sound going out there, I figure, okay, enough's enough. We'll kick it off here. Bottom line is we've seen a lot of vitriol, tribalism, pick the word you want to use. And I don't know, what do you guys think? What's the why about this? Why are we seeing that when we should be like, yay, we're winning? Whoever wants to start first, go ahead, jump in.
I'll jump in because it throws a question. So if anyone saw the tweets I had, part of it where it was, I think it was Bitcoin only, Bitcoin or nothing. Part of me, full disclosure, part of it was I was doing just to see how far the chain could go. But as far as, and it may or may not be locked. Okay, good, because I got it locked in the job hunt. So when I was thinking about this prior to us getting on, thinking about this when you threw out the invite, two things came to mind. One, breaking it down by having either a Bitcoin strategic reserve or having a crypto or strategic Bitcoin reserve, a strategic crypto reserve. The other one being having both. And then also too, what would be the goal of each? And when I think about like Bitcoin, that is the digital asset that's currently viewed as the reserve asset. When you hear other nation states or people in government entities, they talk about a Bitcoin reserve, whether it's one of the U.S. states. I think I saw today the Czech Republic, one of the top people in the Czech Republic was saying, we're looking at strategic Bitcoin reserve because it's got that place and status where in the mainstream that's seen as like the monetary asset. And when I think of a strategic crypto reserve, I remember what Donald Trump said, where he's saying, and I'm going to butcher his voice and imitation, we want to be the leader in crypto and blockchain innovation, the leader in the world. And the thought that came to my mind was, if there were to be a strategic crypto reserve, what would be the purpose and what would be the goal? Like, why would they choose one, a particular asset, digital asset or a token or a currency to be in there? And two, what is the goal that they're trying to achieve by including that asset? Is it to signal these are the ones that we're favoring? Is it to say, we're all for adoption? So that's kind of the curiosity I have. I don't know if either of you have any thoughts on that. Like, what would be the purpose of the goal of like why they would include certain assets that they would for a strategic crypto reserve?
See,
PC, go ahead, jump in, man.
That's something I think we'll hear more about with he did put a group in charge of studying what assets might make it into a stockpile. But I think the biggest part of that is you have Bitcoin, which has now been correlated to digital gold. We have this set supply that we know it's very similar in a lot of its movements and stability. It's current stability in this bull run to gold and how it's performed. And that's where I think the decision is going to be a lot more Bitcoin focused for now, because you're just now starting to see the massive adoption and just Bitcoin. You do have the Bitcoin ETF and the Ethereum ETF for now, but to try to add more in there is going to be, you're going to create more problems than anything else. But the message that you would look at sending is like, who are we going to make rich? And that would be my biggest problem with it. So it's like, if we chose Solana, well, everyone out, 70% of the Solana blockchain is owned by VCs and the team. Do you think they're going to hold that once the government adopts them as a strategic reserve? I don't think they will. They're like, oh, well, this is the money point. We're going to sell off now. And what does that do to the dollar? Demolishes the dollar.
No,
So
you bring up valid points, and even to some degree, that's how I look at having just Bitcoin as a strategic reserve, because think about it, you've got Bitcoin solidly, I mean, just huge quantities of Bitcoin being held by ETFs alone. Now take that into a country FOMO sphere, and now you've got these countries basically having this strategic asset that now they got to consider for national security reasons. What are they doing with this asset? And I worry that we go down the road with Bitcoin, if it's just Bitcoin, being like they did with gold back in the 30s, I think it was, without having it right in front of me. Okay, maybe they don't confiscate your gold, but they have control over a crap ton of Bitcoin. If I said gold, I apologize. Bitcoin, maybe they don't get your Bitcoin, but they will have control over a crap ton of it. And couple that with the fact that not only will governments solid amounts of Bitcoin, but now you've got companies that are controlled by the government, because at the end of the day, these companies that are doing these ETFs are at the whim of the laws that keep getting passed or not getting passed, that affect them. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's a concern to me, and part of why I'm a little more leaning toward the other end of things. I'll just throw that out there now before we even get down that road. But because okay, you can't control it all, is my thought process. But you've kind of pigeonholed Bitcoin if we get into this FOMO sphere. And the point you made about with the VCs, BC, where you were talking about like the Solana VCs or whatever. Well, the same can be said for Bitcoin, NGU technology, right? So, let's be honest.
You do have plenty of companies that are going to sell. Like, this is my selling point. But if you have Michael Saylor, say, who said he's never going to sell, who only owns a little over 1%, and you're talking billions, he owns 1%. If he decided to dump on the market, that's not moving anything. So that's that stability. Where do you want your asset? Do you want your dollar pegged to something that if one of the biggest holders decides they're going to sell all of their bags, you don't dump a market? Or do you want someone where it's like 70% of it is owned by the big market, the big money, and if they decide, okay, well, we're selling now, it completely craps your coin? That's the difference. Michael Saylor, yes, he can create fear, but he's not like at the end of the day, he sold everything. He's not going to move the price of Bitcoin significantly down.
So here's a question to throw out there, talking about, like, say, with bags and stuff. If people, and this is like one of the other things I was thinking about, was like the value proposition behind a particular token or currency, was if, let's say, you had a large entity and they dumped their bags, does that translate in any way to the protocol or a project suffering as a result? Because one of the things I've been thinking of, over the last several months, and this was, I was looking at, I've got some Chainlink tokens, and during all the price action in the last 6 months, once the ETFs went live, like June, July, and the price of Bitcoin is really going up, was when I think about, like, say, Chainlink and what the protocol, what the software, what that actually itself does, and how it's not dependent on the price of the token to be successful, because it's a service, it's a utility, it's a software, and the price of the token go absolutely straight line across, and it could still get massive adoption. So it's not necessarily, you have the influence of the price that draws in interest and that compound effect, but it's not dependent on it the way, say, with Bitcoin, you need, in order to create that adoption cycle, you have additional people jumping in, which creates reduced available supply, which creates upward pressure, which pushes the price up, which brings in more people, and then so on and so forth.
The cycle is there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
And then, like with some of these projects, like, say, like a Solana or something, if there were to be, say, a large entity like, okay, the government, a strategic reserve, whether it's the US or another country, if they were to dump it out, would that have any sort of a massive effect with the protocol itself? Or is it just going to be the price of the token that, the network token is being affected?
BC, you want to?
I mean, it would really just depend on your project. So it's like XRP, which is designed for cross-border payments. The higher the price, the more effectively you can essentially do cross-border payments. Whereas in like Chainlink, it does not affect the blockchain either way. So like some of these utility projects are completely fine, but that's also kind of the projects I wouldn't want to see in there. Well, it's like, I do believe that like the crypto space as a whole needs more than one project, but these are going to be filling different spaces. And like XRP should be for cross-border payments, and Bitcoin should be what you keep your money in. It is your self-banking system. And the more validation you get in that self-banking with a strategic reserve brings more validation to it. You're already seeing it used in El Salvador. They've now backtracked on their whole, oh, you have to accept a Bitcoin as payment as a merchant. They're backtracking on that because they realize that it's like, you don't want this thing spent all around like that. You want it as like a currency, but you don't want to force people to have to accept that. It's done wonders for their economy. They've now raised up the level of their ratings on their country enough that they could get $106 billion loan, which kind of forced them along this path where it's like, okay, we're not going to force you to do a Bitcoin payment thing. This is gold. Are you going to go spend gold at the store every day? No, that's ridiculous, and it costs a lot of money, and it makes you extremely unsafe. Whereas in, hey, XRP costs a cent to use. Why would you want that in a reserve though? It's a liquid asset that you can freely move around extremely cheaply. That's its place in the world. Whereas in Bitcoin is not that. It was supposed to be your bank. It was supposed to be you in control of your own money and like a peer-to-peer transaction. It is now at the point though, if you want a peer-to-peer with it, it needs to be a very, very large transaction, which would be great for the governments, because it's like, hey, well, El Salvador is calling on its debt to Ecuador. Hey, bro, just send me a Bitcoin and we're good. Your debt is paid. And that would be nice. That'd be a cheap and effective use of Bitcoin as peer-to-peer because of its price.
Yeah, it's funny because it reminds me of a statement that Trump made, I think, during his the campaign or whatever. He's like, yeah, maybe I'll just pay the debt by sending him a little Bitcoin or something. It's kind of, I get it. But see, now, that was, you kind of started to answer the question I was going to throw out next, which is like, okay, it's great for governments because, okay, they got, like, El Salvador has however, many thousands of Bitcoins they have. I don't know the exact number,
like
right off the top.
6,100.
There you go. So, you know, if they want to send it super, they can afford those fees, et cetera, et cetera. But the you and I and the people who are putting aside Satoshi by Satoshi are basically locked out of that system
Mhm.
once this FOMO happens. So, okay, great. You know, my number go up, but it's a useless number because it's nothing more than dashboard money at this point.
Hmm.
And am I missing something? I mean, I don't know. Feel free.
No, I'm following along. It's like I'm as you're saying that, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm seeing this problem. Like, would I want to say with Bitcoin, as problems have presented themselves, someone's tried to come up with a solution like the Lightning Network's idea of faster transactions, cheaper transactions. If the scenario that you're talking about comes into play, would someone else innovate something where there'd be an easy way without, like, for what is it? There's whales, there's shrimps, and what's like in between for
Sharks.
the
Yeah, I
The
don't
the, the sharks.
maybe but it's like for the small fry people, you know, that we've got enough that we're glad we have it, but I still kind of wish we had more. Are we going to be in a situation where the transaction costs, where we actually want to say, like, okay, you know what, I want to peel some of this off because maybe one day we'll have a situation where we're able to use it as collateral on a loan, in which case we have to put it into like not a third party, a multi-sig wallet, let's say. That's the situation. How much is it going to cost? You know, is it going to be a significant network fee to move that? And are we in a situation where, okay, we're going to have to come up with, you know, someone out there is going to come up with a solution to be able to move that on chain, either to off chain or some way to reduce the cost so that it's not, well, you know, we'll be able to secure the money for a down payment on a mortgage, but it's going to cost us the equivalent of down payment of a car to move it, type of situation. So
Sorry, I just got to throw this in there, Tech Man. I appreciate you being here. Dolphins too. Let's not forget the Dolphins. Yeah, there you go. There you go. I know we're kind of getting a little off of where we were starting with governments here. But this, to me, is in and of itself an entire conversation that needs to be had, because to your point, Brian, yeah, there's people trying to innovate, whether it's Lightning, whether it's these what do they call them now? Not Citadels. That the name will hit me shortly. I'm sorry. But the point is that given the current level of technology and innovation, none of it, in my opinion, fits the bill, does the job. It just doesn't. Well, and especially if we go down this FOMO road. That's my opinion. BC, I know we kind of gone off, but I want to give you the opportunity to throw anything out there that you might have, by all means, before we kind of try and bring it back here a little bit.
Well, on his comment, wherever it is going to get pricey to transact, the more costly Bitcoin gets. And it's like Bitcoin's at the end of the day, essentially a living token. So you'll see things implemented to slowly adjust to things the same way as with Lightning and things like that. And that's where off-chain is going to be a big thing too, where it's like at the like an off-chain where if you're able to move from wallet to wallet and without having to incur a lot of the bigger fees, where, okay, I'm just going to hand you the cash essentially for it. Here's my Bitcoin, here's the cash for it. And like you make sure on the blockchain that this is all lining up, you're good to go. And like that's another very easy way to get around it, because a Bitcoin was essentially supposed to be peer-to-peer. And that's where it's moved a long way. Yeah, it's moved a long ways from that. And I think that next cycle, once it gets to that point where it's like, okay, I can't really buy any Bitcoin. Okay, well, Bitcoin Cash comes to call. And that's your poor man's Bitcoin, or name your project. That's your poor man's Bitcoin. And I think that's the cycle we'll end up seeing as people get bullied out. So
Oh, I agree with you there. That I agree with that 100%. 100%. All right, let's try and bring it back a little bit. And I was gonna wait for this, but the way we've been talking, I think we should bring it up now. Um, as a space, okay. I think we've seen humongous strides, especially within this last cycle, these last 4 or 5 years. I mean, we have got, in my opinion, if back in 2020 you told me that there were going to be congressmen, senators, presidential candidates, whatever, talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, NFTs, hell, meme coins, I would have just laughed. I would have said not even close. I would have been like 2030 maybe, that kind of thing. But look where we are. This last, like I mentioned when we were talking behind the scenes, I mean, this last election that we just had a couple of months ago was a cryptocurrency election as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I know I'm being a bit myopic in looking at it through just the crypto lens, but I like that crypto lens. And not for nothing, we're talking in this country an average or a voter block between 50 and 80 million people. That's a huge voter block. So we've made a lot of strides with regard to that. And I guess I would like your opinion, because to me, it wasn't a Bitcoin only voting block. Okay. And I see it as a crypto voting block. And I see that is the way that this whole space needs to move forward. And as a group, as a one voice kind of thing. But just this little thing, this little executive order, and at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's a very small thing in the bigger scheme of things, has upset the apple cart in the space. Do you guys see that, we can make more innovation if we're not being unified? Or did I miss something along the way with the innovation, by the way, and the great, the positive strides we're making? What do you guys think?
I think that's more of an internet problem than anything else, because you have natural human tribalism, and you're like, oh, well, I've been in XRP since 2017, so like XRP, 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 and you have a lot of people like that in the space.
Yes.
And anytime
Yeah.
somebody says something that's not overwhelmingly positive about their token or doesn't include their token, they immediately feel discluded. Whereas if you include Bitcoin, it's not like Reagan's trickle down economics. This is actually trickle down economics. If Bitcoin's price goes up, everyone's assets price go up. So it's a positive no matter what gets included or what doesn't get included. And people just need to unplug sometimes from the internet and take a little breath and a breather and like just actually realize that. And that's the biggest part of like, it's more of like a current societal placement of things, because you'll see that with not just crypto, with literally everything in society right now. People are so quick to just have an argument and be angry when there's no reason to be angry at the end of the day. It's words, it's not words, it doesn't change the whole trajectory of your life. Just to breathe and get to the other side of it. Like as long as it's not negative for your wallet, which none of this has been negative for my wallet, then I'm okay.
Okay.
I'm going to agree on what BC was saying, and saying that, excuse me, right now, from my own observations, humanity seems to be going through a phase in some very strong tribalism. And we see that expressed, whether it's cryptocurrency projects or it's, like you said, anything. And I guess like you said, it's an internet problem. When you look at people, whether they collaborate or they're competing. It doesn't matter, if they're being friendly or if there's tons of friction. People have their own motivations to drive and to see whatever they're vested into succeed. One of the examples I could think of is like when I watch Charles Hoskinson videos, and he's always talking about, and people trashing and saying you're this and you're that. And when he goes on to all the crypto Twitter and everything, and yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of it is the noise. It's the equivalent of the BC. What are you? U.S., Canada,
U.S.
U.S. What part of the country are you in?
I'm smack dab in the center.
Okay,
Right. Yeah.
it'd be like Detroit Lions fans trashing on Bears fans, trashing on Bills fans, while the teams keep going on, doing their thing and playing their game and trying to improve on that. Where are you going to base what you do on all the noise, or hey, our goal is to win. Our goal is to achieve a certain, there's an end point of what we're trying to achieve, and all of our actions are behind that. It's the same thing with these projects, where there's that competition where Ethereum wants to be the dominating, and the people behind it want to be the dominating smart contract platform in the space. But it's the same with Solana, same as Avalanche, same with all these others. And so that competition is going to be there. If anything, the noise might just turn things up a couple notches, where it's like, they're just, well, screw these guys. We're going to beat them to the punch on that. And that friction in the human nature helps sort of drive things. But, it's being mindful too of keeping perspective on that, not losing sight of it, which is what Charles Hoskinson talks about a lot, which is we're all going for the same goals of a better world, using these protocols to try and enable more honest changes in all the spheres of human interaction. And so it's like not letting it's okay to talk smack with your buddy, but just keep that in perspective and know he's still my buddy, but yeah, I'm going to rip him, So
that's an interesting way to look at it. I like that. That's a good way to look at it, quite frankly, if you ask me. And there you go. That's what Bedell's got to say about the Bears. Oh man, I love it. Hey, also, I just want to make a quick mention. I put the poll on this and around everywhere, X, so on and so forth. But I just put the poll back up here on this live stream because for some reason YouTube closed out the poll. And I don't know why it wasn't letting me reset it. I did reset it, and you can go ahead in and vote. Basically, it's asking, plain and simple, do you believe that we should have a Bitcoin only strategic reserve here in the US? Yes or no? And so I make sure you go ahead and vote. I'll give you the prelim from all the other locations. It was literally split right down the middle, 50-50. And when I went just now and looked at this poll, it is a split right down the middle, 50-50. So, I mean, I guess that doesn't surprise me, given our demographic of who we got watching here. We have people who are definitely, they respect Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, but they don't mind dabbling in these altcoins that may or may not make them some money. So I get it. I get it. You guys, great points that you're bringing up. And maybe you're right. I hadn't looked at it from the perspective necessarily that the internet is the problem. I really hadn't. But well, I mean, because you talk about coordinating and right, Brian was just talking about that and so on. And but what are you going to use to do it? Yep. You're going to use the internet, right? Yep. And so it's like, to me, it's just the means to the end, if you know what I mean. So interesting. You've given me something to ponder. Thank you, BC.
It's a very dual-edged sword. See, and like it's great for me because like I grew up at like I'm late millennial. So I remember, like, if you wanted to play with your friends, you went and like a biked to your friend's house.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
my girl's got an 11-year-old. If he wants to play with his friends, he picks up the phone, or he like video calls them, or like he doesn't go out of the house to find his friends. And it's like it's only like 10 years later. What happened?
Right.
And like that's where like it's really opened my eyes at how much the world has changed in a brief amount of time, and it's all because of one thing, and it's the internet.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I when I was a kid, it was like wherever all the bicycles were sitting,
Yeah.
that's where everybody's at.
Yeah.
That's where everybody's at. That's how you knew.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
No, I'm not adding because it's like, okay, I'm thinking go back to reserves. Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So, do you think? Okay, I get it. The internet may be the problem, but we need the internet in order to foster this change and this moving forward. And again, it was the ability of, in my opinion, X and other such more free speech kind of places that influenced this last election, with people being able to say what they wanted. And, positive, negative, good, bad, one side, other, it doesn't matter. The point was they got their point out there, they got their argument out there, they got their whatever out there. So we're still going to need to do that to move this whole space forward. But do you really think that the space is ready to heal to do that? Or does it need to heal? I don't know. To me, I think there needs to be some healing going on. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think?
It would help. I mean, if think of like going to sports analogies again. You have a locker room where, all the stories and the documentaries you see about, when I watched the one about Boston when they finally won the World Series in 2005-06, or when the Cubs finally won the World Series, or whatever it was, and everyone on the team was kind of harmonized towards the same page.
Yes.
Right. The locker rooms together. Everyone's I'm going to say that like with my high school football team too. One year they were, this is probably the first example where I came across it, where they lost in sectionals maybe. And they were singed about it. And one of the guys said, next year we're going to win state. And sure enough, they were all unified behind that one goal. And son of a gun, they won state. And I think it would help and things would move faster.
Yes.
But it's still going to move forward because people, through those individual projects are moving the ball. So,
okay.
It's kind of like on the more woo side of things, we'll be fine. And we're going to, end up in a better place of humanity. It's just a question of how many times we're going to punch ourselves in the face along the way.
Yeah, bang our head against the wall. Yeah. I get it. All right, fair enough. BC, what say you?
I mean, I can definitely agree that at least people in the space should be a little more friendly with each other. But like he had said on the last thing, where it's like a lot of it is just noise, and it's like people hold a project and they feel like they're a significant part of the project, when it's the coder in New York with Injective that they're doing their own thing and they're not paying attention to the noise that's on Twitter. So that's very different than what they're doing. What they're doing is they're working to compete, to fill a niche in the world that needs to be filled to make the world a little bit better. Like, I'm trying to make this DAO so that we can take taxes to a different level, or I'm trying to have this DeFi project so that like you don't have a whole hassle with insurance companies anymore. Or, hey, I want a smart contract so that we can vote more effectively. Like, there's so many uses for crypto, and people are just stuck in right now and they're not looking at what is this use case in 20 years and how is the world going to be better on it. They're focused on how is Trump coin going to make me rich? When is XRP going to go 1,000x? And
Yep.
it's like,
Yep.
but there's other things to it. And the crypto space is a crypto space of technology. What is the technology? And you have too many people focus on the money aspect of it. Yeah, it's nice to make
Yes.
money. It's really nice to make money. I'm not going to say it's not, but like the Bible says it extremely well. The love of money is the root of all evil. Not money
Amen.
is the root of evil. It's the love
It's
of
the
money.
love
You
of
have
money,
too
yes.
many people
Correct.
focused on loving that money. Let me get those gains. Let me get those gains, as opposed to what is this technology brought to the world? I've been in Bitcoin since 2011, and the reason I love Bitcoin is because of what it brought to the world. And it changed my life in a lot of ways, and I will forever be grateful for that. And that's why I have no hate on any project. I just don't, that doesn't mean I'm going to hold them.
Yeah, fair enough. And okay, so I agree. Once you get into the space, and whether it's Bitcoin or, honestly, if you believe in the ethos of the space, being able to debank yourself, to be able to be self-sovereign, to be able to use crypto as it was meant to be used, once you go down that rabbit hole, it changes the way you view things, which is why you've got so many people trying to show the bigger picture, and comes to mind immediately to me is like Piper Academy, in particular, when Army Piper's sitting there at 9:30 in the morning, and he's going over all this stuff that you would think has absolutely zero to do with Bitcoin or crypto, but yet it does. And that, to me, is big part of the word we need to get out there, so people understand, because I think we've been trained, or yeah, I'll use that. We've been trained in a way that's no longer, or as we're going forward, is no longer going to serve anybody. Now, just to encapsulate what both of you said, so what I'm hearing initially, and then I want to kind of tweak it a little bit, but initially is, you think that projects and the people who are involved in the projects, or even the communities in the projects, should kind of nose to the grindstone, and just keep going, and kind of let the chips fall as they may. Am I getting that correct?
Most
Because
definitely.
it'll be overall good.
Yeah, competition drives the market.
Okay.
Drives innovation. Better to have 50 minds trying to figure out the best way to build a better mousetrap than just one.
Amen. Truth. All right. So now here's my tweak a little bit. What can we do? Because we may all not be the biggest influencers here in the cryptocurrency space. Let's just put it out there. I'm not George from Cryptos R Us. I'm not Crypto Crow. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not one of these bigger guys. But I do feel a responsibility to how we lead the space, how we move the space forward. What do you guys think we can or should be doing as influencers to kind of help that? Because to me, that helps heal the space too. It just does. If you're doing it right, you're healing the space. What do you guys think?
Do you want to go ahead, BC?
Yeah, I just try to approach it the same way that I approach my everyday life, with positivity, spreading the positivity, and trying to keep a lot of the hate away. I do joke about a lot of projects and like the negatives on projects, but if you don't talk about the negatives on projects, then these won't get fixed, and you won't look at, okay, well, what does it better? Maybe I like this project now because it it negates that problem that Solana or XRP or BNB or whatever project it might be has. And that's where you want to keep your eyes open and you want to keep the positivity, but you don't want to be blind to the negatives on the project itself. And you want to have love for your fellow man, and you want your fellow man to win the same way that you want to win. Because all you're doing is hurting yourself at the end of the day by having negativity. And that's something, again, with the internet has kind of removed you from that barrier where you're like, I'm looking my fellow man in the face and I want him to succeed.
Yep.
So,
rising tide lifts all boats, as they say.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
I was going to say, essentially, being a good example and, doing what we're already doing, where the people that do connect with us, that we do connect with, being a good example. And in my case, through my own acts, it's when people are being silly, sometimes in some way, I call it out, like whether it's, if I can kind of tell, like someone in a tweet is sort of, maybe they're just sort of going with the crowd and they're acting a little ignorant, really can just point something and they'll be like, oh yeah, well, I was just kind of kidding around. Or if someone's being genuinely stupid,
Oh yeah,
calling them out on that, like, seriously. But I think just being conscientious of these things and trying to not let our own nature and wanting to, get a dunk or dog pile or anything like that, get the better of things. And as long as we are making those efforts, I think that will reflect in the message we communicate and how we communicate it and how we interact with others. And that direct effect's going to have its own, knock-on effects. Those people interact with others, et cetera, et cetera.
Agreed. Okay. I want to hit on a couple of comments real quick. Oh, well, one comment in particular, but I want to say hey to Alexandra G. Appreciate you being here. Lady is awesome. She's everywhere. I don't care what time of the day. She's on with BC in the morning.
Yeah.
and here we are going into the later evening, and here she is, man. Here she is. Appreciate her very much, very, very much. And then I want to whoops, wait a minute. What did I just do? I did something. Okay, wait a minute. There we go. And I want to kind of give a quick shout out, and then we're going to look at 100 Air's comment with regard to what we're all talking about here. I think we all kind of pointing our thought process with regard to that question in the same direction, and to the Billy Coattails community. So shout out to them, because that is exactly the philosophy, the giver's gain philosophy, that I think we need more in this space. It's not like they don't help you because they were expecting anything. It's that simple. They think it's the right thing to do, and that's why they help you, assuming you're, a decent person in the space, right? I mean, let's be honest. But that is where, or that is what, in my opinion, we all need to focus. That's how we all need to laser focus it, in my opinion. Right. Now to what 100 Air said, real quick, influencers need to focus on education and guidance versus maximizing profits. Mm-hmm. I personally like the guy from Coin Bureau as an educator. Yeah, he is good. And all his videos are like super. I can watch even the longest videos because it's just the way he is. But yes, 100 Air, I agree that we've kind of lost that teaching piece to some degree, a little bit. What do you guys think about this?
I think so. One of the points I didn't think of, but in the previous question was, if I saw anything in 2024, is that when there's problems and people want solutions, they're willing to embrace pragmatism. And I think along those lines, if there are people in the space where either they drop off or just the numbers of people who are more into the drama and my project versus your project are, prevalent than, more democratically or more big picture focused type of people. With the growing numbers of people getting into the space and really, getting into things in all parts of the bell curve, there's going to be an appetite for people like this that are essentially neutral on protocols and are more just educating people. And in a way, it works out, because either you're going to have a situation where there's, you're going to have the same size audience, and it's either going to be spread out among multiple parties, or it's going to be more concentrated. In the case of the concentration, it just makes that channel that much stand out that much more and draw that much more attention. And you just hope, like in this case with the team from Coin Bureau, that they, don't go askew. But
Right.
I mean, if there's a lack of channels, if anything, that concentration just becomes that much larger and grows the audience, which draws more attention, etc. My thought.
Fair enough. No, good thought. BC.
I like that he said Coin Bureau and that, because like that I watched him all the time.
All
I
the
was like,
time. Yep.
that was one of the first crypto YouTubers I ever really watched. I know there is a lot of drama in the space, and it's nice to see that there's been a slight switch of ethos back to what the original ethos of crypto was. And you kind of see there's people flood away from a lot of the drama on things. And I just want to see that really continue happening in the space, because, crypto is about freedom and everyone deserves freedom. And I think people forget that
Amen.
sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, yeah, they get bogged. I say we get bogged down in our own thing. You know what I'm saying? Throwing shade everywhere except for myself. No, it's truly though. I mean, we're all guilty of it. I get in the middle of something, and then, it takes a comment or whatever before I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe it's time to kind of back up the truck a little bit. You know what I mean? And I realize it, and it's like anything else. So I appreciate that, and maybe 100 Airs got the right idea here, with regard to education and guiding people being part of the way. From my question earlier, how do we heal? Do we heal? And by helping each other, that's the way to do it. I mean, feel free to tell me I'm way off base here, guys, but
I do have a question, and it kind of loops back to the main topic. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Strategic crypto reserve. I guess 2 points come to mind. One, is it a situation where, kind of going against, almost like being a hypocrisy of some of the the enforcement of the SEC, as far as like picking winners and losers? Would the decision of what tokens for whatever projects getting included in that be essentially deciding the winners and losers in one respect? And two, would actually, two other points. Would, let's say the US takes the lead for a strategic crypto reserve, and it picks 5, Bitcoin and tokens from 5 other smart contract platforms. Would that one have a compound effect for do you think other nations would start making them look at it the way they'd say they look at a Bitcoin reserve? And two, do you think that could do something, or what kind of an influence or effect would that have with adoption and people, just interest coming into the space for those particular projects?
BC, go. You're the guest. You go, and because I can throw my opinion out all the time.
So I think it'd be a nod to the legitimacy of certain projects if they do choose more than just Bitcoin. I do think it would definitely increase other countries' interest in also having a reserve in that asset, because it would also allow them to transact at a governmental level with other governments in that asset. So like the whole point of a reserve is so that you have that as a reserve, and if you need to use it, you can pay your debts with it and kind of peg your dollar. You want to keep a certain amount in where your dollar is pegged to that, and anything extra you can use to pay. And that's where that comes to call. Instead of, okay, when we need to pay this debt, we're printing trillions of dollars, and then here you go, and now our dollars now devalued, so really what we're paying you is less. You pay them in that reserve. And that's where gold used to be a big mover. They moved it around a lot when they paid debts. We
Yes.
did it. We paid for land in France by handing France gold on ships. It'd be so much easier to do that, being like, "What's your Bitcoin wallet address?"
Yeah.
Okay,
On the
homie.
blockchain, baby.
Yeah. Oh, you said you just needed a few $1,000s to purchase said whatever. We'll just use Solana or said crypto project, whatever it is that they want to add as a reserve. But that only works if other countries do start looking at it as well. And I think if the US does it, we are that number one on the GDP, and we have the most money, and we spend the most money in on the other countries. You will see them adopt it as well. I think it'll take time, because we're not even first to the game on even talking about the Bitcoin reserve. We have plenty of other countries that have already been making the moves. We now just have the first bill on the floor of Congress that has been brought to the floor of Congress for a Bitcoin reserve. And you have countries that have already had that and rejected it and are now like re-looking at it because Trump talked about it when he was running for office. So
Yep.
Game changer.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. If what as the US goes, everybody else will FOMO. It's that simple, and it doesn't matter whether it's Bitcoin or whatever other project. And I agree with you. There needs to be some ability to be able to utilize that whatever the reserve is in order to be able to pay for things or exchange whatever. Now, let me ask you this on a slightly different note. I don't want to really get too far down this road, but your thoughts. Do you think that they would adopt, and not as a reserve, but as a medium of exchange, a stable coin to make that happen versus using, again, a Bitcoin, a Litecoin, a BCH or whatever? What do you guys think about that?
Like, give me an example of how they would use it.
So in other words, like BC was saying, he was like, well, if you want to buy something from this other country, okay, here, I'll give you a Bitcoin, or you owe somebody some money, here, I'll give you the Bitcoin. Instead, you'll be like, okay, here's USDT or
100%.
USDC.
I absolutely think that it might be something done in parallel, but I could absolutely see, regardless of a strategic Bitcoin or crypto reserve, things reaching a point where the stable coins are used as for transactional purposes of exchanging value. Absolutely. Because just everything over the years, all the stuff that we've seen in the headlines with Circle and what they've done with legislators and regulators. Yep. And then, I saw a piece maybe a few weeks back talking about, and it might have been a non-crypto website too, talking about the importance of Tether to the US Treasury, because it creates that buying demand where I could absolutely see someone in the government says, you know what we can do? Tether can be sort of one of they can take the place of the countries that say we're ditching the dollar, and they can we can sort of nurture them in to create, to be a source of demand and maintain the value of those bonds. So I could absolutely see stablecoins being something that's thrown into the mix as used for transactions. Maybe that'd be easier, because if it's something that's commonly used between, say, banks individuals, governments, it might just have that much of a wider adoption than say XRP, which might be more concentrated among banks and businesses. So, it's still it's still, yet to be determined, and an open, not an open book, but an open-ended, there's no
an open question. Yeah, an open
Yeah.
question.
But I could absolutely see stable coins being one of those things used, and plus they're liquid. So that's the thing. So yeah, I could absolutely see that being something that would be used for transactional purposes. Yeah.
Okay. BC.
It really just depends on the government, because you would that would essentially make a new world currency at that point. Because if you were accepting a stable coin, you have now pushed upon a new global. You now got rid of all fiat currencies, and there's now one kind of global accepted currency, and I don't see a lot of countries being okay with that.
Well, yeah, if you were to go down to one, but the way I would see it working more would be, I know I probably pigeonholed the question. I apologize because I said USDT, but I would see, for example, using USDT, sending it over to, Japan to pay X, Y, or Z, and then maybe that gets converted to their yen. I can't remember what the stable coin version of the yen is. You see what I'm saying? That's more so. It wouldn't necessarily be one per se, but it would still honor their fiat currency, I guess, if that makes sense. That's in my limited head here. I could be completely off.
I mean, I would just see your reserve asset being used first instead of transacting in someone's dollar. I think eventually down the road we might get to a point, and that's where, like, say the government's going to use a bank, and that country's going to use a bank, and to make it easier, they will transact in like a stable coin.
Right.
But I think for now that's a ways off.
Yeah,
we gotta.
Oh, I agree with you. We haven't even
Yeah.
got the reserve thing in hand here, and just the 100 airs point. Yeah, it's I agree with you again. I wasn't looking to get completely down this road here, because yes, this is where we would end up talking CBDC here.
Yeah,
and
that's why as soon as you started asking it, I was like,
yeah. All right,
like,
I derailed my own show. I'm sorry. All right, thanks. There we go. All right, so let's bring it back. And Brian, I'm sorry, Brian, did you have something?
I have a stablecoin question. So, do you think that because it's a digital asset, blockchain-based cryptocurrency asset, and because of its tie-in for the U.S. Treasury with bonds and currently now the Federal Reserve, do either of you think that a strategic crypto reserve would have stablecoins thrown in there?
No.
I would say no. Because, like, what's the point? That's the complete circle of, like, you're backing your dollar with your dollar.
Well, I mean, that's essentially what the U.S. does right now. But
exactly.
So they're trying to get away from it.
Right. That doesn't help you. So there we go.
Yeah. I think it would be used as a transactional level by governments, but at that point, I hope to be long dead, because I don't like the implications of it.
Okay, then. Boy, we went from positive right down
Well, like my time horizon on that would be like way down the road, because I think it's going to take time to adopt the Bitcoin globally.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to take time to adopt other projects globally. And so my time horizon is, I don't plan to sell Bitcoin until I'm like like 63 years old and I can just like, okay, I'm gonna retire to this little corner of the globe, and like this is the last time y'all ever hear from me. I'm gonna
That's
live
right.
in peace and quiet. I've done my piece. Y'all figure your
Yeah.
part out, because
I'm out.
I'm done. Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And listen, if you haven't already smacked the like button, smash that thing up. And these guys, make sure you're following them if you're not already doing that. Links to all of their information in the description. And for that matter, Brian's actually simulcasting the stream on his channel. So if you're there, make sure you show him some love. And if you're not, go ahead over there, show that man some love, and get him some more subs and likes. Okay, so to bring it back, Brian started the question with the question about the strategic crypto versus Bitcoin reserve. Let's get to that question, and then I'll close the poll out. So
I see the polls swayed.
yeah,
Just
it
a
has
little bit.
swayed. It has swayed. So what do you think? Are we better off with just, or okay, maybe I should caveat it. At this point in time, are we better off with just the Bitcoin strategic reserve or the national crypto stockpile? I know I'm butchering whatever Trump put in that thing. So,
When you say better off, are you talking about a particular community?
no.
Particular
Let me rephrase. Should we? Which? Let's just go with the question. Which one should we have? Which one do you think we should have at this point in time?
At the risk of catching flack, I would almost say starting with the strategic Bitcoin reserve, because it seems like in a lot of ways, Bitcoin's led the path of adoption of mainstream awareness. Now, you've always had something like the meme coins, whether it be, having Doge jump in the last cycle, or then like getting Solana in, or just whatever it is right now. But from people that don't follow the space, people that don't know anything about NFTs or meme coins, or what a smart contract is, and they only see what's on mainstream headlines, Bitcoin's sort of that first step. And that's also not to say that it ends with a strategic Bitcoin reserve, because that can just be a first step. But having that in there, I think in a way can be sort of like a pioneer event, or a pioneer thing, where it's like, oh, we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and then we'll start seeing the headlines about the value went up, the value went down. This country had it, that country had it, that country has it, this state, this city or whatever. And then that in a way sort of conditions people and opens the door to, well, maybe we should look at some other tokens out there, because we're hearing about this, and I would imagine the rising tide lifts all boats, the overall value of all these other projects are also going to be rising as well, and becoming more liquid and drawing more interest and such. So if I had to pick one right now, I would say Bitcoin.
Okay, fair enough. BC, go.
And I'm of the same mind. Bitcoin is a more mature price action asset right now in the crypto space. If you want to peg your dollar to an asset, you want something that is going up over the long term, but is also very stable when it is going through its downtrends. So if you're going to see a dip, you don't want to see a 70% dip, because that just demolishes your dollar. And this is where, like, even a basket of assets, yeah, it's good when everything's going up. But if you have Bitcoin stabilizing at 40% down, and you have the rest of your assets 80, 60, 70, 80, 90% down, your dollar's demolished. And this is where you need the maturity in a lot of these other projects if you want to peg the dollar to it. And so for now, the best and safest move in my eyes is having a Bitcoin reserve.
Okay, Fair enough. Okay. My 2 cents. You guys have changed my mind a little bit since the beginning of this, in the sense that, okay, hopefully I can explain my logic. Yes, I think we should start with Bitcoin. Most adoption, everybody. Okay, that's wrong. The majority of people know Bitcoin, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so makes sense. Start there. I also know that governments can just suck. So my concern would be that, because I think I am still of the mindset that I still think there needs to be other assets, crypto assets in the reserve. But you are correct, BC. The current volatility and so on would just not be necessarily good to throw that in there. Even though, if, for example, I'm just pulling one out of the air, we took BCH and put it in the reserve, everybody else would be FOMOing like the US is, oh, they're putting BCH, so which would inflate the price and then hopefully stabilize the price to some degree. I get that. But anyway, back to my original point with the governments is that if they are going to do a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I would like, as part of the bill, language, whatever, that it states somewhere in there, and after a period of X years, this group revisits adding more digital assets to the strategic reserve. And again, because at that time, who knows what's in the space? I mean, you go back and look at the top 20 coins from 2014, and you look at them now. Yeah, no, it ain't the same, man. Not even close. So, do you see what I mean? So, I would like to see that, only for the fact that it would force the governments to have to go back and revisit this issue, and kind of, to me, spread the risk, I guess, because think about it, it's not just a gold reserve we have an oil reserve, we have a this reserve, we have a that reserve. Well, why not the same idea set with regard to cryptocurrency? That's my 2 cents. But to start, I agree with you, given the current state of where we're at, and that's why I tried to ask it that way. Given the current state where we are today, yeah, I think we'd have to start with Bitcoin. Techman is saying, not trying to start stuff. Okay, he started with that. Yes, he's trying to start stuff. And then, it's all right, Techman. We love you anyway. But BCH and BTC have a very bad past. They fought. Yeah. Well, yeah. I pulled BCH out of the vapor there. It wasn't so much about BCH necessarily being the next one. So, but I don't know. I see room for other assets as this space matures. I guess that's probably the best way to round up my comments.
Oh, he said, because adding BCH to the reserve will throw fuel on the fire for Maxis.
Oh boy.
There you go, Techman. That's why I love Techman. That's why I love Techman.
It's crazy, because it was all over 8 megabyte blocks.
Yep. Well, facts. Facts, right? Facts.
Okay.
I did want to add something when you were talking about those points, like when you brought up that thing about if we were set up where like every few years that there's a review, the incentive that little twist would create, because a project then would be the people, it's like, hey, it's almost like trying to get added to the S&P in a way, like with a stock, where if you want to have your token added to this, a strategic reserve, you'd probably have to fit hopefully a certain set of criteria as far as like network reliability, adoption, that sort of thing, functionality.
Exactly.
And not just, favoritism and who's got more influence to get picked over someone else. I mean, if that were the case, then that would be a huge incentive for projects to grow and improve and innovate, and wow,
Yeah,
that'd
and
be
want to do it.
huge. And that's a great reason, if it can be done successfully, to have a strategic crypto reserve.
Yep. I'm with you. I agree. Incentives are there at that point. BC, did you want to throw anything else in there?
I think that's kind of a good measure on things. It'll kind of to force projects to change some of their trajectory on things if they want to get added. Well, it's like, hey, so Solana might clean their blockchain up a little bit if there's the possibility to get added to a strategic reserve.
It's so funny you picked that one, because I was thinking to myself, man, I would never want to see them right now as they are right now. It's like, holy crap.
This is why I think it should be Bitcoin first, and you need to see a lot of maturity happening in the rest of the space. Because if you leave that in there and you can get added if you get your crap together, then maybe these projects might change some of what they're doing. Like Solana wouldn't chase money. You wouldn't have a lot of other projects that are like, oh, well, let's add meme coins on here. It would clean up the space a lot with just a simple added sentence on there. Every 10 years, we're going to review to see what the best assets are to potentially add them to a crypto reserve for the US. It would bring a lot of legitimacy to the space as well. So it's a nice caveat. I think it's definitely a for later thing.
Okay, fair enough. And to your point, it would make us self-regulate, not because the government is saying it, or not because the space would regulate itself. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, or at least that's the way I see it.
You would
force
have
the space to regulate itself.
You would have to.
Yep.
This would almost be, when I'm thinking about, like, say, like going from 2017 to today and what we've been talking about, this would almost be, and it's not necessarily that it's picking winners or losers, but it's setting a bar that people can aim for.
Fair enough,
And
yes.
instead of it, us trying to figure out for ourselves and then battling it out and then trying to convince people outside the space, it's almost like it sets this standard that people can look at, outside people, and go, oh, it needs to do this, it needs to do that. And then, almost like underwriter laboratories, you need to hit certain criteria to get our label.
And
it's saying, like, a certain level of legitimacy to these projects. So that could very much be a good thing.
Okay. Now, here's the thing. As far as I'm aware, that isn't in the current bill that's hit Congress, and it isn't in the executive order that we started this whole thing off with. What do you guys think the likelihood is that comes in somewhere, into play and actually makes it into law?
The bill that's sitting,
whether it's that bill or another bill, that bill, another bill, an executive order, whatever. What do you think the chances are that makes it in somewhere? Because it sounds great, but
if we thought of this, I'm sure someone else out there will eventually pick up on the same idea, and understanding how incentives worth carrots or sticks. I mean, it's possible we'll probably see something that we don't completely agree with, but would be an acceptable next step. So,
just again, I'm just curious, because I think it's a great incentive. So, BC, what do you think?
If we, like he said, if we've thought of it, there's no way that people that make a lot more money and spend a lot more of their time thinking about these things haven't thought of it. I don't think it gets slid in right away. I think it's left open-ended for now, because they've struggled to even get Bitcoin as a thing that they could even put as adoption. and it still would have to go through Congress as
Yes.
well.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
just because we say this is our reserve asset doesn't mean that you have Congress that's like, yeah, let's do it. You've still got to sway a big part of Congress to actually implement this. So
Agreed.
plenty of time for them to go back to the drawing board and write it all out again and fit it more to their likings. So we'll really have to see what the wording is as it comes out. I think we'll have to wait a lot longer than that first 100 days to really get that, because there's a lot of
As much
important
as I
things.
wish we didn't, I agree with you. I think we will. Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know everyone in the crypto space. They like crypto, and crypto is important to them. But when you zoom it on out just a little bit,
Oh yeah.
crypto's
Absolutely.
just a $3 trillion asset. Like it as a whole, like a whole in the space. You're talking about Apple. That's Apple. You're one stock in the whole Nasdaq. We're a very, very tiny scope on the grand scheme of things. There's a lot of important issues to tackle first. So I think it'll take time, and I think these discussions are a positive, and we should keep our eyes open because it's going to happen eventually.
Mhm.
I agree. And there'll be a point where we as a crypto community are going to need to push that button and be contacting the congressmen, contacting the senators, and being like, yo,
Mhm.
this is what we need, so I agree. Stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah.
I hope everybody has enjoyed this conversation we've had tonight. It kind of went a couple of stray errant directions there, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. So we're almost an hour and a half in at this point. So again, if you haven't already, make sure you smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed to all the channels, please do so. Appreciate that. I guess we'll end it with any last thoughts that you guys would like to throw in, and or if there was something we didn't cover that you want to throw in, now's the time. Whoever would like to go first.
Go ahead.
All right. Bitcoin will eat the world. I'm biased, but
That's too funny. And with that, here, wait, let's bring that back up. So there you go. Yeah. and there it is. All right. BC.
I really like this discussion. I'm glad I was able to sway some of your minds
You
on
did.
it with the help of Brian. It's I think if people had more of these discussions, there wouldn't be so much vitriol and hate and disparity in my project versus your project in the crypto space.
Mhm.
So I think this needs to happen a little more often, and people need to take a step back and look at it with an open mind and realize that just because one thing wins doesn't mean that yours can't win later.
Yeah.
So
That's a great point. Great point. Yeah, I think that we, as influencers, I'm coming back to the influencers here on the stage and quite frankly in the space. I think we could help to foster that change. I was almost going to say force that change, but I don't want to force anything. This is, well, I really don't. Who wants to be forced to do anything, right? I mean, let's be honest. But to be able to focus people's attention properly on the issues and thought processes, to have an open discussion without having all the stuff we've seen, like I said, in the last week on Twitter with this shit going on. Again, I was trying not to get into the colorful language there, but we can influence that, and I think a lot of it starts with stuff like we did here tonight. And matter of fact, you know what? I'm gonna try and commit myself this year to be doing more live streams like this. So hopefully you guys will be willing to jump on board and do that, whether it's about strategic reserves or who knows what in the space. Because I think if we work diligently at doing this, we can make the difference. We can be the change.
Most
Agree.
definitely.
All right.
I think you should definitely reach out to Billy from Billy Goat Tales. And
Yes. Yes.
he,
Yes.
he can definitely help you along with that goal.
Yes. It needs to happen. And yes, he's on my list for talking to again this year. Or this year. Well, it is a new year. So there you go. I got that right. Because I was talking with him last year about things like this. But anyway, I look forward to more of that. All right. That's what I've got for tonight. I appreciate you guys being here. I truly do. And you guys are always welcome back on my channel. Hopefully you guys will join for Crypto on the Rocks, because we have a lot of fun on Crypto on the Rocks. But not that I'm trying to twist any arms here or anything like that. But no, hey, listen, how can you go wrong grabbing a beer and just shooting the crap about crypto? I mean, I'm all good with that. You know what? I wanted to make one other point, and I'll make it really quick and we'll get the heck out of here. I will say this, as I was saying, trying to, push people in the right direction. I have found very few people, when I actually do reach out to people and ask for assistance or ask if they'll join me or engage me in some kind of conversation, to be anything less than kind in this space. And that's both in person, from what few crypto conferences I've gone to, like, one-on-one, they're great, willing to engage and been friendly. And even here, online, and to your point, reach out to Billy, but Billy was like, well, you need to reach out to this one and you need to reach out to this one. And all those people have been just super nice. I mean, I'm going to guess you guys have experienced the same thing. I'm not saying there aren't jerks out there. That's not what I'm saying. So please don't blow me up in the comments if you're watching this later. That's not what I'm saying. But like, if I had to take the overarching attitude of the space, it's actually kindness and willingness to help. Guys,
people out there.
Yeah. I mean, that's been my experience. And you guys agree? Am I off base?
I've only been doing this for about 6 months, so
well, hopefully so far so good.
It's been great so far. We'll see. I'm supposed to go to my first Bitcoin conference here.
Oh, are you going
this year? Yeah. So
I'll
hopefully I get to see what you're talking about there. So.
There's a couple that are more local to me. I'm trying to hit a couple of those this year. I don't know if I'm going to make it to Vegas, but we'll see. We'll see if maybe I'll get enough views and I'll get monetized and I'll be in Vegas. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But all right, let's wrap this puppy. I appreciate everybody. Thank you to everybody who's been in the comments, who's been in the live chat, keeping that alive. Appreciate watching on all the different locations, and thank you for taking part in the polls. Have a great night, guys. Thank you for being here. I'm just checking the last comment. Yeah, I got to go to Vegas. Yeah, I want to go to Vegas. It's gets to be a little, you know what I'm saying? Just pricey. And Jack, you're coming in at the very end here, but appreciate you being here.
That's one of my buddies. So
is it? Oh,
yeah. He actually tuned in at the very end.
You're coming in as we're closing it up. You're gonna have to rewatch it there, buddy. But thanks for being here. Don't forget to smash up the like. All right, we're out, guys. Again, thank you very much. I appreciate both of you for being here. So we're gonna do it again. We'll do this group again. Maybe we'll revisit this sucker in a couple of months and see where we land after they do a little bit. Sound good?
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right, everybody, we're out. I hope you have a great night. and a good weekend. And again, if you don't already, make sure you're joining me tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, Crypto on the Rocks. All right, we're out. Have a good night, everybody.
See ya.